A hyper-realistic cinematic wide shot of a solitary peasant stopping on a rugged, arid mountain path in Chiapas at deep pre-dawn, his face illuminated by a sudden, terrifying crimson glow from the sky, contrasting sharply with the deep blue darkness, volumetric lighting, strong chiaroscuro, his expression a mix of panic and profound reverence, shot with Canon EOS R5 and Sigma Art 35mm f1. For film simulation Kodak Ektar 100, inspired by Mel Gibson and Caravaggio, our 16.9. An ultra-realistic close-up of the peasant's face, sweat and dust visible on his skin, his eyes wide, looking up in awe and terror as the blood-red light floods the scene. Dramatic volumetric lighting, heavy shadows on his neck and hands, rich textures of his simple woven tunic, cinematic depth of field, inspired by Caravaggio's mastery of human emotion, shot with Ilford HP5+, R16-9. A wide-angle shot of a desert valley at night. Total unnatural silence has fallen, the only light coming from a massive ephemeral crimson flash emanating from the sky, emphasizing the isolation and the epic scale of the event. Deep contrast between the red light and the cold, dark landscape, ultra-realistic, shot with Canon EOS R5, inspired by the apocalyptic scale of Ridley Scott, R16-9. A hyper-detailed, low-angle shot showing the earth itself vibrating, a single dust-covered hand of the peasant resting on dry, cracked soil, with the intense crimson glow reflecting on the dirt, volumetric lighting emphasizing the unseen grave humming from the ground, rich texture of the soil and skin, cinematic scale, inspired by a biblical tremor, R16-9. A majestic cinematic wide shot of the firmament, tinged with terrifying crimson. The light is not just a color, but a palpable, dense energy. Focused over arid, ancient mountains, the scene conveying a sense of divine announcement, ultra-realistic, volumetric, lighting ethereal glow inspired by Gustave Doré's celestial scenes, shot with Canon EOS R5, R16.9. A close-up focusing on the peasant's ear and the side of his face, the skin taut with fear as an impossible metallic prolonged sound, like a celestial trumpet, vibrates through the air. Dramatic chiaroscuro, the warm light suggesting revelation amidst the cold despair, shot with Sigma Art 35mm f1. 4 hyper-detailed textures, R16-9, a cinematic portrait of the peasant, his head thrown back, an anguished expression of panico and reverencia on his face, the bloody light illuminating every crease and tear track, suggesting a soul facing divine power, ultra-realistic deep contrast, highly expressive, inspired by Caravaggio's subjects in the moment of conversion, R16-9. A wide shot of a busy street in Mexico City at night, the chaos of traffic and pedestrians, all activity is frozen as everyone looks up at the crimson sky, mobile phones raised. The scene capturing the sudden shift from normalcy to collective terror. Cinematic lighting, ultra-realistic, inspired by a modern apocalyptic vision, R16-9. A chaotic close-up of a trembling hand holding a cracked smartphone, the screen showing the impossible red glow in the sky, emphasizing the rapid spread of fear through social media, rich textures of the hand and phone, high-contrast urban lighting, a snapshot of digital anxiety, and mass hysteria, the 16-9. A panoramic view from a rooftop in Monterey, the cityscape bathed in the unsettling ethereal crimson light, capturing a sense of global bewilderment and the unexplained echo of the sound over the urban sprawl. Ultra-realistic, volumetric lighting, high dynamic range, epic scale, R16.9. An atmospheric shot of a confused news anchor sitting at a desk, looking lost, the studio lights stark and cold, while the monitor behind him displays a chaotic montage of the red sky footage, emphasizing the inadequacy of scientific explanations. Cinematic portrait shot with Canon EOS R5, R16-9. A powerful medium shot of a small, spontaneous prayer circle on cold asphalt in a major city, several figures kneeling, faces wet with tears, hands clasped and raised in desperate supplication for mercy. Dramatic chiaroscuro with an ethereal glow from above, rich textures of the street and their clothing, emotional intensity, R16-9. A contrasting wide shot. On one side, People are kneeling in prayer in a city plaza. On the other, shadows of looters running away with stolen goods, a visible fracture in humanity under the cold, uncertain urban light. Cinematic composition, hyper-realistic, capturing the great sifting, R16.9. A hyper-realistic shot of ochre-colored rain falling lightly on a dry, ancient-looking street in a Mexican town, covering the ground and cars with a persistent reddish dust, the scene smelling of burnt metal and ancient earth. Cool, palette, soft cinematic depth of field, ultra-detailed textures of the dust and wet stone, R16.9. A dramatic close-up of a pile of dead, dark birds scattered on dusty ground, having fallen from the sky, their wings in chaotic patterns, the surrounding environment conveying a sense of unnatural stillness and doom. Rich textures, cool color palette, inspired by a biblical plague. R16.9. A cinematic wide shot of a herd of cattle in a rural area, breaking through a wooden fence in a blind. Stampede, eyes wide with inexplicable panic, running away from an invisible threat. Dynamic movement, dust in the air, volumetric lighting, ultra-realistic, inspired by the terror of the animal kingdom. R16.9. A desolate scene, a single distressed dog silhouetted against a cold, empty sky, howling incessantly at an unseen entity, suggesting the creatures are perceiving a fracture in the spiritual order. Chiaroscuro lighting, emphasizing the isolation and agony of the animal. R16.9. Powerful image of a river in Chiapas or Veracruz, its water inexplicably stained an intense crimson color, like blood, flowing through a lush, normally green landscape. The visual contradiction is terrifying. Ultra-realistic water textures, cool and unsettling palette, epic scale. R16.9. A cinematic low-angle shot of a minister or priest with an anguished yet determined expression, speaking to a vast, dark, overcrowded temple, his hands gesturing wildly, preaching feverish repentance under. A stark, dramatic lighting, rich textures of old stone and worn robes. R16.9. A tense close-up of a looter's face in a moment of absolute depravity and selfish panic, his eyes filled with a predatory look, running away from a shattered store window, illuminated by the harsh, unnatural light of the anarchy. High-contrast, ultra-realistic skin and texture. R16.9. A wide, atmospheric shot of fine, reddish ash, like dry blood, falling selectively over a silent city park, covering the benches and the faces of a few onlookers. Metallic taste in the air, a sense of desolation and selective judgment. Cool, heavy light, shot with soft, cinematic depth of field. R16.9. An emotionally charged close-up of an elderly person in a remote mountain village, their face deeply wrinkled with tears streaming down while they look up, seeming to recall ancient legends about the heavens speaking to judge the earth. Deep chiaroscuro, rich cultural textures. R16.9. A harrowing image of a large crowd in an urban area standing still, hands covering their faces or raised to the sky, surrounded by shattered glass and sirens, depicting the moment where fear mutates into anarchy and despair. Dramatic, high-contrast cinematic scene. R16.9. A close-up on the trembling hands of a government minister signing a resignation letter, his face shadowed and distraught, emphasizing the collapse of human authority against the divine. Cold palette, shot with Canon EOS R5. R16.9. A wide shot of an army. Soldier in the middle of a city street, looking up at the sky with a lost and terrified expression, his weapon uselessly held, symbolizing the impotence of human force against a celestial signal. Volumetric lighting, ultra-realistic. R16.9. A hyper-realistic shot of the sun seeming to blink, a slow, deliberate pulse of light and darkness over the skyline of Mexico City, captured at noon. The scene emphasizing the impossible disruption of the natural order, epic scale, high dynamic range. 16.9. A majestic wide shot of the full moon over the Yucatan Peninsula, stained an intense blood red, appearing to bleed over the still ocean, fulfilling the prophecy of Joel. Dark, dramatic atmosphere, ethereal glow on the horizon, ultra-realistic, inspired by ancient apocalyptic engravings. R16.9. A close-up portrait of a child's face, eyes wide with an unsettling mix of terror and wonder, holding a simple drawing that shows red skies and terrifying figures, symbolizing the psychological siege on the nation's spirit. Soft chiaroscuro reflective light, R16-9, a cinematic shot of a paralyzed economic district, tall, empty buildings, traffic frozen, emphasizing the global cessation of normalcy. The atmosphere is heavy and silent, cool palette, shot with wide-angle lens for epic scale and desolation, R16-9. A powerful, ultra-realistic shot of a small group of strangers embracing on cold asphalt, singing hymns with tear-filled eyes, an act of pure, desperate faith and forgiveness amidst the chaos and looting in the background. Dramatic lighting, high emotional intensity, R16-9. A dramatic wide shot of a category-defying hurricane crashing into the coast of Oaxaca, the storm having formed in hours, its fury selective and unnaturally powerful, showing the lashing of untamed nature. Dark, turbulent sky, ultra-realistic water and weather effects, inspired by Nahum, R16-9. An aerial view of a village being swept away by an apocalyptic deluge in the north. The water not bringing life but destruction, a powerful visual of judgment disguised as weather. Dark, volumetric lighting, cool palette, epic, terrifying scale. R16-9, a haunting image of a pilot in a cockpit over the Gulf of Mexico, his face illuminated by the flickering, malfunctioning instruments, looking out at a silent curtain of light dancing below his plane, conveying a sense of terrifying supernatural intrusion. Cold, internal lighting, R16.9. A wide shot of fishermen on the Sinaloa, coast in the dark, pointing out to the sea which seems to boil without heat, releasing a vapor that smells of ozone and incense. Ultra-realistic water textures, soft, ethereal glow on the horizon, cool, mysterious atmosphere. R16-9. An intense, hyper-realistic wide shot of the second and final celestial sound exploding over a major city at noon. All cars and people frozen, everyone instinctively looking up. The light is pure, the sound visible as a shimmering vibration in the air. Absolute, undeniable power, inspired by the voice of God. R16-9. A majestic, breathtaking panoramic view of the sky opening up over a sprawling landscape where luminous white clouds begin to weave themselves into an intelligent, impossibly graceful formation, challenging all physics. The light is pure and blinding but non-hurting, ultra-realistic, ethereal glow, divine intervention. R16-9. A transcendent, wide shot. The swirling, luminous clouds in the blue sky have coalesced into an unequivocal cross of light of cosmic proportions, hanging silently over the paralyzed world. The visual is one of terrifying beauty and absolute finality, inspired by Matthew 24:30, epic, ultra-realistic, ethereal glow, R16.9. A powerful, symbolic image, the silhouette of a colossal winged figure, seraphim, formed by the pure white coalescing luminous clouds suspended between the earth and the heavens, embodying centuries of sacred art materialized, ultra-realistic, majestic, deep blue sky, volumetric. Lighting, R16.9. A close-up of a hand holding a smartphone, whose screen has suddenly fused to black due to the electromagnetic pulse. The only visible light is the reflection of the cross of light in the dead screen, symbolizing the silencing of human technology. Ultra-realistic texture and detail. Cold light, R16.9. A dramatic close-up of an adult's face in the moment the technology dies, eyes wide with naked panic and realization, completely isolated from distraction. The only sound, the internal memory of the celestial trumpet. Ultra-realistic skin, deep chiaroscuro, intense psychological terror, R16.9. A profound, wide shot of a crowded public square in a modern city, every person frozen, looking up at the cross of light with expressions of lamentation and terror. The global power blackout visually emphasized by the absence of all man-made light. The only illumination is the pure ethereal glow from the sky. Ultra-realistic, emotional intensity, R16.9, a cinematic portrait of a child kneeling on the ground, face washed with tears of terror and confirmation. looking up at the faint glow of the celestial sign, his posture suggesting the arrival of the long-awaited king, soft golden light, deeply emotional and serene despite the panic. R16:9. A symbolic image, a Bible open to a page with a prophecy, e.g. St. Matthew 24:30, illuminated solely by the ethereal glow filtering through a window from the heavenly sign, emphasizing the prophecy becoming real-time chronicle, rich textures of old paper and light, soft focus, R16.9. A wide, low-angle shot of a group of frightened people huddled together, their faces reflecting the pure, cold light of the celestial cross, the scene conveying the 3 minutes of forced self-confrontation, the weight of their past actions visible in their anguished expressions. Ultra-realistic. R16:9. A dramatic close-up of an eye looking up, the image of the cross of light clearly burned onto the retina's reflection, symbolizing the unerasable collective certainty left behind by the event. Hyper-detailed, high-contrast, surreal moment. R16:9. A powerful wide shot of a desert landscape where a large, diverse crowd is spontaneously kneeling in worship and supplication, facing the clear, bright sky, the dust and heat of the desert, contrasting with the spiritual intensity. Golden hour lighting, cinematic epic scale. R16.9. A medium shot of a mother holding her child close, both looking out of a window with intense, fearful contemplation, the external chaos reflected in the glass, while the golden light of the pause bathes them in a soft glow, psychological intensity, intimate moment. R16:9. A cinematic portrait of a false prophet with slicked back hair and a feverish, manipulative gaze, standing on a makeshift pedestal, surrounded by a small, terrified cult, offering salvation for earthly possessions, dramatically lit with harsh, cold light. Ultra-realistic. R16.9. A symbolic image of a single tear tracing a path down an adult's cheek, reflecting the pure white light of the vanished celestial sign, representing the silence and the overwhelming presence of the unanswered question. Ultra-detailed, deep contrast, highly emotional. R16.9. A wide, desolate shot of a street just after the technology revives, screens flickering, back to life. But the people's faces are drawn and empty, the hollow imitation of normalcy contrasting with the recent divine event. Cool, muted urban palette, ultra-realistic. R16. A powerful shot of a man standing alone in a large, empty room, his face illuminated by a cold light source, his expression one of relentless, unavoidable revelation, the weight of the new reality upon him. Deep chiaroscuro, ultra-realistic portrait. R16.9. A dynamic wide shot of bandwagons of small children, flying in chaotic patterns over a city, one of them falling like a dark stone, capturing the agonizing groan of creation. Dark, turbulent sky. High contrast, ultra-realistic. R16.9. A medium shot of a hand trying to turn the volume of a car radio back up, but the face looking out of the window is already haunted by the silence of the trumpet's echo, symbolizing the attempt to drown out the divine message with distraction. Deep shadows, ultra-realistic. R16.9. A panoramic shot of a coastal city at dawn. The sky a vibrant mix of ochre and dark crimson hues, the atmosphere heavy with ominous beauty, the air filled with metallic dust, volumetric lighting, epic scale, ultra-realistic textures of the sea and architecture. R16.9. An intense close-up of two hands clasped together tightly, one belonging to a looter and one to a praying woman, symbolizing the choice and the great separation happening in the heart of humanity. Dramatic chiaroscuro, rich textures of skin and fabric. R16.9. A wide shot of a church filled to overflowing, people spilling out onto the steps, all faces raised in an attitude of desperate, febrile repentance, the old stone church bathed in a cold, spiritual light. Ultra-realistic, profound devotion. R16.9. A dramatic portrait of an old fisherman on a dock, his face weathered and stern, his eyes wide with the terror of having seen the sea boil, the scene conveying ancient wisdom confronting an immediate, terrifying miracle, warm and cold light. Contrast. R16.9. A highly detailed shot of blood-red ashes resting on a simple, ancient wooden roof in a Mexican village, the texture of the rough wood contrasting with the soft, ominous dust, emphasizing the selectivity of the judgment, soft cinematic depth of field, warm earthy tones, are 16:9. A powerful symbolic image of a broken weather vane on a roof, spinning wildly in an impossible wind, under a sky of unsettling crimson, representing the collapse of natural laws and meteorological predictability. Ultra-realistic high contrast, are 16:9. A medium shot of a family huddled in a dim home, looking furtively toward a closed window, the fear manifested as a silent, paralyzing presence in the household. Cool light, psychological terror, ultra-realistic deep domestic shadows, are 16:9. A wide shot of the Zocalo in Mexico City completely frozen in place. A vast expanse of asphalt and human statues looking up. The only movement the subtle shimmer of the second trumpet sound. A scene of absolute unavoidable divine power. Epic, ultra-realistic, are 16:9. A close-up of a beast's eye, a horse or cow, wide with terror, the pupil reflecting the chaotic movement of its herd and the invisible threat they are fleeing from, symbolizing the creatures feeling the spiritual fracture. Ultra-realistic, intense expression, are 16.9. A haunting wide shot of an empty road at midnight, every single car stopped and abandoned in the middle of the lanes, the only light, the faint residual glow from the crimson sky, emphasizing the total cessation of human activity. Cool, desolate palette, are 16.9. A dramatic low-angle shot of a single street lamp flickering back to life after the global blackout, its weak yellow light contrasting with the recent memory of the pure celestial light, symbolizing the return to a hollow imitation of life. Ultra-realistic, are 16:9. A close-up of an old rough-hewn wooden door, the symbol of the narrow gate, Porta Estreta, illuminated by a sliver of golden encouraging light from within, while the outside is dark and chaotic, symbolizing the choice between paths, deep chiaroscuro, a 16:9. An extreme close-up of a human heart, visibly pounding under the skin of a chest, an inner turmoil and confrontation, illuminated by the cold, relentless light of revelation, symbolizing the judgment starting in the heart. Ultra-realistic, intense focus, are 16.9. A symbolic shot of a scale, balanza, one side weighted by a heavy dark stone, sin, the other by a faint ethereal feather of light, grace, emphasizing the moment every soul was weighed during the silence. Spiritual, dramatic lighting, are 16:9. A medium shot of a broken satellite dish on a roof, shattered and useless, symbolizing the collapse of our modern Babel system, under a sky that is still faintly tinted with an unnatural color. Cool and desolate atmosphere, ultra-realistic, are 16.9. A powerful wide shot of a crowd looking up at the moment the cross of light vanishes, their faces now reflecting a newfound absolute certainty that cannot be ignored or explained away. The sky is deep blue and empty. Ultra-realistic collective spiritual trauma, are 16:9. A cinematic shot of a family heirloom, a cross or relic held tightly in a trembling hand, illuminated by a single candle, the only light source that didn't die during the blackout, symbolizing the authenticity of true faith. Rich textures, warm light, are 16:9. A wide shot of a desolate shoreline, with high, crashing waves under a dark, apocalyptic sky, the bramido del mar, roaring of the sea, emphasizing the confusion and distress of the nations. Ultra-realistic water movement, high dynamic range, are 16.9. An evocative shot of a single bare light bulb in a dim room, trying to compete with the memory of the immense celestial light, symbolizing the pallor of human creation against the divine, simple, high contrast. Ultra-realistic, are 16.9. A medium shot of an elderly woman kneeling alone in a dusty village, path, her hands stretched out toward the empty sky in a posture of final, desperate plea for forgiveness, her face serene despite the surrounding chaos. Warm, late-day light, ultra-realistic, are 16:9. A dramatic low-angle shot of a street sign lying broken on the asphalt, with looters running past it in the background, symbolizing the anarchy and the breakdown of all rules and human order. High contrast, ultra-realistic, are 16.9. A wide shot of a church choir standing outside their church, singing hymns with their hands raised, their voices a beacon of hope and repentance amidst the urban despair. Golden hour light, ethereal glow on their faces, ultra-realistic, emotional. R16-9, a close-up of a child's hand drawing a seraphim with pure white chalk on a dark pavement, the drawing illuminated by a cold streetlight, symbolizing the collective memory of the divine sign burned into the unconscious, ultra-realistic textures. R16-9, a symbolic shot of a closed, rusty gate, representing the end of the era of excuse, illuminated by a powerful singular beam of light from above, emphasizing the finality of the revelation. Deep chiaroscuro, rich textures of rust and metal. R16.9, a powerful medium shot of a government official staring blankly at a muted television screen showing static, his posture suggesting the total collapse of his worldview and the irrelevance of politics against divine power. Cold, sterile office light. R16.9, an ultra-realistic wide shot of the mountain landscape of Chiapas, bathed in a serene post-apocalyptic dawn, the air heavy with silence and the knowledge of what occurred, emphasizing the sacred pause for choice. Soft golden hour light, ethereal glow over the peaks, inspired by Caravaggio's meditative scenes. R16.9, the final symbolic close-up, a single drop of water on a dry, cracked stone, reflecting the vast, clear blue sky, representing the last echo of mercy and the moment to choose. Hyper-detailed, soft focus on the background, ultra-realistic. R16.9,